Hi everyone, thank you for joining us at the CGLCC's 2021 Digital LGBT Global Business Summit. My name is Jennifer Cook, and I'm the Director of Inclusive Trade at Export Development Canada. EDC is proud to sponsor the Business Summit once again, an event that is always full of learning, connections, and inspiring stories of resilient people and their businesses. At a time when business is unusual, these forums provide a valuable platform for exchange, and I'm so grateful to be here with you all. Today, Canada's entrepreneurs from all diverse communities are starting businesses at the fastest rate among SMEs, and there are vast opportunities for them to access new markets and become high-growth businesses with national and global ambitions. Yet, they continue to face barriers to growth. Through EDC's inclusive trade strategy, it's our goal to remove those barriers and ensure that all diverse-owned Canadian companies can and do benefit from the opportunities that flow from trade, and that they're aware of and can access the resources and financial solutions to help them succeed on the world stage. We recognize that some segments of Canada's businesses, including those owned by people from the LGBT community, face unique challenges in the business world. And partners such as the CGLCC are helping us on our journey to better understand the needs of LGBT owned businesses relating to trade, so that EDC can provide the knowledge, products, and services that they need to grow their businesses internationally and export with pride. It's our goal to ensure that all Canadians, no matter their gender, race, beliefs, or identity, have the same opportunities to dream big, be daring, and take on the world. To the team at CGLCC, thank you for your partnership and for convening this business summit. I look forward to tuning into all the sessions today. And now I have the great privilege to introduce our first session of the day, an LGBT out leadership discussion with Tony Abrahams, co-founder and CEO of AI Media. I hope that everyone has an excellent day at the conference.
Welcome to Day 3 of the Global LGBT Business Summit. My name is Daryl Sherman, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of the CGLCC. Thank you for joining us. One of the absolute best parts of my job is having the opportunity to meet some amazing and inspiring LGBT entrepreneurs. And I'm so pleased to be with one of those here today for our LGBT out leadership conversations. Tony Abrahams is the co-founder and CEO of AI Media, a company that leverages technology and social innovation for inclusion of all. I met Tony a few years ago when he moved to Canada, and I've had the privilege to get to know him over the years and watch him as he's taken his company to new levels. So Tony is truly someone that is an inspiration and creating meaningful impact on the world. Tony, welcome.
Thanks, Daryl. Great to be with you.
So let's start off by, why don't you tell me a little bit about AI Media?
Yeah, so I co-founded AI Media 18 years ago, back in 2003, actually with my ex, Alex Jones, who is profoundly deaf. And what we did at the time was we actually introduced closed captions to the cable and satellite industry in Australia, which bizarrely enough at that point didn't have any closed captioning. And then what we did is we then said, okay, well, as wonderful as it is to provide access to the marvels of television, if you're deaf or hard of hearing and growing up, how do you actually participate in education? How do you then go and get a job? How do you really enjoy the social inclusion that the rest of us take for granted? And really the solution for that was to effectively take closed captioning as we know it on television and make it applicable in schools, colleges, universities, workplaces, online events, and so forth. And so Alex and I then worked to create a new technology solution that would enable us to deliver really, really high quality, reliable captions and to deliver them into schools, universities, workplaces, and events. We launched that in 2010. And then after that began to grow and be successful, we then looked to expand our business outside of Australia. The first country that we expanded to was actually the UK back in 2012, and we made a lot of mistakes actually when we went into the UK, and it took us about 4 or 5 years to really get into the rhythm of what it meant to manage a global technology business. And then in 2017, we opened our office in Toronto, and I was living there for a couple of years pre-COVID. And looking forward to getting back actually as soon as the Australian government lets me leave the country. But we've now grown that business globally. We do more than half of our revenue now in North America, and we listed AI Media on the Australian Stock Exchange last September.
So needless to say, you've been a little busy over the last few years. Which is exciting, and congratulations. I think it's when I said this is you're somebody who's an inspiration and creating meaningful impact. I think it's clearly evident that you are somebody that is doing that. So thank you for the work that you're doing. Walk me through your personal journey of entrepreneurship. You talked about how you started AI Media, but how did your journey around entrepreneurship actually begin? Was it this opportunity, or is there something in the past that kind of drove you to this moment?
It's a great question, actually. I never really set out to be an entrepreneur. I was always interested in entrepreneurship, but this opportunity actually came about when Alex and I were at a cocktail party. And I had actually just quit my job in investment banking back in 2002, and that was a pretty soul-destroying experience. And I'd actually quit my job on the Thursday, and we had this cocktail party on the Saturday, and we met the director of television for Foxtel at that party, which was the biggest cable and satellite broadcaster in Australia. And the director there, Brian, said, do you like Foxtel? And Alex said, can't understand a word of it. And he said, what do you mean? It's like, well, I'm deaf and you don't have any captions, and I'm not going to pay $100 a month for a service that I can't understand. And by the way, 1 in 6 people have a hearing impairment. 1 in 4 people speak a language other than English at home. And a lot of people just enjoy watching television with captions. You guys should put them on because it's not going to cost that much. And Brian said, well, can you guys come in and give us a presentation? And we actually went in the next week and gave a basic business case presentation on why actually providing accessibility was also good business sense. And then we did a consulting engagement to the industry for 6 months before we even started AI Media, just on looking at what the business case was for introducing captions, how that could be done most cost effectively. And at the end of that report, the CEO of Foxtel said, yep, we want to go and do this, but we don't want another cost center in-house. If you guys want to set up a captioning company and then tender for the work, feel free. And we said, well, can we use this research that you've paid us for in the last 6 months? And he said, sure. And so we then decided, let's set up AI Media, and kind of the rest is history. So, I mean, if it wasn't for meeting Brian at that cocktail party, I don't think I'd be sitting here today at AI Media. So it was not some grand plan. It was just, right place, right time. And I was certainly happy for the opportunity, but it was pretty serendipitous to start.
It just goes to show that all great ideas started with a cocktail, I guess. I don't know, maybe.
Absolutely.
I don't know if I ever told you this, but Bruce and I, the other co-founder of the Chamber, we started the Chamber over a cocktail party. So there you go. I guess.
Well, there you go.
There we go. But no, that's a great story, and I think it just goes to show that sometimes things just happen, right? And when we least expect it, and it's connecting with the right people. When you perhaps least expect it again. And, it's really interesting and inspiring to hear that. You talked about at the start about some of the growth that AI Media has gone through over the last few years. And certainly with some, I think we chatted the other day about all the acquisitions that you've been making over the last year. I've lost track. But
Four.
Four. Amazing. So what's driving that? What do you think is driving that?
Oh, look, it's consolidation in the industry. It's technology, and it's this shift away from what had been a purely human-delivered service with stenographers towards one that is just much more scalable with technology and with re-speakers. And so the difference between a stenographer is someone who has a court reporting machine. It has 22 keys on it, and they press 3 keys at once, which produces a syllable at a time. And so that enables people to write or type effectively a syllable at a time, which is obviously much quicker than typing a letter at a time. So most touch typists can get to sort of 80 to 100 words a minute maximum. A stenographer can get to about 225 words a minute, which is the speed of very fast speech. Most speech, though, is around about 150 to 180 words a minute. And what we find is that for that content, a methodology whereby you have a re-speaker, which is someone who listens to what's being said and repeats it into a speech recognition engine that is uniquely trained to their individual voice print, gets a much better level of accuracy than what you would get from the automated solutions. And we've actually hired over 100 Canadians in the last year working from home, many in Nova Scotia, but also in Ontario and Manitoba, to effectively do this work from home, whereby they can log into a particular session, which might be, University of Toronto economics lecture. They will listen to what's being said, and then they will do the live captioning by repeating it into a speech recognition engine that's been trained to their particular voice print. And by doing so, we're able to do over 5,000 hours a week worth of work. And we're providing many and varied opportunities for people to work from home through this process. And this shift away from requiring stenographers to this sort of mixed mode of technology and humans means that we've been able to bring the prices down, which is also improving the affordability and increasing the amount of access that people are doing. And because we've already invested over $50 million in our technology platform over the last 10 years, we're now seeing a lot of very, very good businesses, including a disability owned business in the United States, really say, okay, well, we don't want to, reinvent the wheel here. You guys have got this great technology. We're committed to great service, and can we bring that technology effectively into sort of our customer base, and that's really been the logic for the 3 of the acquisitions. The 4th acquisition was actually the most recent one, was a company called EEG, which is a technology-based acquisition. So EEG actually have a leading position over 3 decades of providing the encoding solutions for broadcasters, whereby they effectively take a broadcast feed and then distribute that and add captions to it. And that has really allowed us to now position ourselves as a kind of global one-stop shop for any customer anywhere in the world who is streaming their content and requires captions, live translation, or transcription for any event anywhere. And that's why we're really excited by it. And the pandemic has actually helped us in a way, because our entire solutions have always been powered over the internet. They've always been designed for home-based workers. And so we've always been operating in this work from home environment since the day we started the business. And what the pandemic did is it really forced a lot of our customers to also get up the curve in terms of making themselves better place to connect over the internet. So we saw a lot of colleges and universities for the very first time actually invest in proper infrastructure to stream their services effectively over the internet, which is a key enabler for adding captions and transcripts and translation.
Which is amazing, and I should take a moment here at this time to say that AI Media has been providing throughout the summit here, has been providing the live captioning in English and French. So thank you. Sorry, English, French, and Spanish. So thank you for that. In part, our goal with the summit is to make sure that it's as accessible as possible for as many people. And so thank you for helping to deliver that. One of the as you're talking there, I'm curious around the, certainly you talk around consolidation has been kind of helping to drive this, but has the shift and focus perhaps from on the corporate side around diversity, equity, and inclusion, has that brought this more to attention in terms of companies, realizing that they need to be more inclusive? And then I guess a two-part question then is, and how has that kind of translated into AI Media? Obviously, in terms of beyond what you're doing, I'm talking in terms of how you operate and maybe even how you lead.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think ever since 2009, I would say, which was when the International Convention on the Rights of People with Disability was enacted, we've really seen year on year a massive increase in diversity and inclusion awareness. I would say that actually North America is probably leading the world on this. We certainly see more awareness of diversity and inclusion in our North American customers, for example, than we do in our UK or Australian customers, but they are catching up. And so I think we really are seeing this leadership come out of North America. I think the supplier diversity initiatives that really took root in the US and have now expanded into Canada as well are absolutely helping to lead that way. And there's just been a broader understanding of the benefits of diversity, I think. And as the world gets more uncertain and as technology begins to offer many more opportunities for people who may have been excluded in the past to participate and to do so in a way that is cost effective, it's really coming at it from both sides. Like we actually see a lot of customers who have wanted for a very long time to provide accessibility, but they didn't know how, or it was just too clumsy, or it wasn't reliable enough. So it really has been a bit of a sweet spot of having the willingness and the drive that's coming from people who really understand the benefits of diversity and inclusion, as well as the technology to actually enable it. And it's really only been in the last couple of years that both of those forces have come together, and that's created this kind of sweet spot for certainly the growth of AI Media, and as well as the acquisition opportunities that are coming our way.
Mm-hmm. You touched on supplier diversity, and AI Media is a certified LGBT plus business here in Canada. And I know it was a long process. We were working with you for a while to get you certified. So what does that mean for you? Going through that process, maybe talk to us about why you did it and why it's so important, and have there been any kind of successes because of that?
Thank you, Daryl. Yeah, I mean, it's been great. I mean, we only it was a long process, and rightly so, because you have to make sure that there's a lot of credibility in this process and in this certification. And it was actually great to experience the rigor with which that certification process was undertaken. We are starting to see some benefits from that, and we've been applying on a lot of the supplier diversity portals, and we've been sending our certificate off to a few customers in Canada now, who are really focused on that supplier diversity program. Customers that we've been introduced to through the CGLCC, as well as through outreach that we've been doing through our own business development team. But it's just such a wonderful opportunity, and it gets you in the door with people who are, in our case, already more attuned to the delivery of the services that we're providing, because they're already focused on inclusion. So it's really been kind of a confluence of both the kind of sales opportunity that the supplier diversity credential provides, but it's also been a really warm introduction to professionals who share our values and vision for making the world a more accessible place, and creating opportunity for people, regardless of their background, regardless of their ability or disability, and providing a true opportunity for everyone to participate in the economy and in the world to the best of their capabilities, regardless of impairment. And it's a great opportunity for talent as well, right? Like, what kind of talent are we missing out on because we haven't provided live captions? What kind of talent are we missing out on because we don't have an accessible workplace? We're seeing labor shortages all around the world at the moment, and what we're getting from a lot of our sort of top shelf, particularly technology customers, is they want to attract engineering talent, and that engineering talent may not necessarily have a great grasp of English. Well, this technology that we've been delivering for the benefit of deaf and hard of hearing people also works for people whose English isn't that great, because it's much easier to read the English than it is to listen to English, particularly when it's all in different accents and people might be talking quickly. And then having the certainty of that transcript at the end of the day means that there's a much more of a shared understanding of what was spoken about when you do have those captions, and also, of course, when it's translated into French or Spanish as required as well. So we're really seeing people moving away from just thinking about captions as being something for a very tight group of deaf or hard of hearing people, to it really being a tool for universal design in certain circumstances where everybody is benefiting from it. I mean, over half of people actually watch Netflix with captions on or subtitles in some format. And so it really has moved from being an access service to a mainstream service in a very short space of time. And so, having the ability to then connect with large mainstream organizations, the big banks, the big technology companies, that's been a huge benefit of certification, and one we're just getting started on.
Great. You talked again at the start of our conversation around your growth, and you talked around kind of your expansion into the US, starting in the UK and then expanding from there. So you are a global company. Many entrepreneurs would be kind of intimidated by doing business outside of their kind of domestic marketplace. And I should actually mention that you and AI Media were part of our trade missions that we did to the US a few years ago. And so I think early on, clearly, you knew that global expansion was important for your business. So, what is it like taking a company global as you have?
Time zones are the killer. And it's tough. And in fact, when we opened our UK office, we probably bit off the hardest part first, because the time difference between Australia and the UK is 11 hours. And so you're never at work at the same time. And I would say time zone management was actually the most difficult thing for us to get a handle on. And tools like Zoom and Microsoft Teams, as well as obviously the pandemic, where everybody is suddenly using these. I mean, we were using those for several years beforehand to make sure that we could connect with people. And for the team that's based in Australia, the workday starts at 6:30 a.m. And not everyone wants to do that. But you know what? People have a few hours off in the middle of the day, and that suits a lot of people as well. And so it's really about kind of working flexibly. That's key if you're going to have a global business. The other thing is that you need to empower local leadership, because regardless of what country you're in, the local nuances of each local market are actually really important. So you need to find people in local markets that believe in the global vision, but that can localize it to that particular market. So for the various services that we've got, we have very different SKUs in Europe, for example, than we do in Canada. We have a lot more translation, for example, that we do in Europe because of the sheer number of languages and interoperability of those languages. For example, we did an event for Unilever last week where we translated into 11 different languages, an event where they were working with brand influencers, teenagers actually, across 18 different countries. And they brought together this completely interactive multilingual event where we were providing the services in real time, in live into 11 different languages, which allowed everyone, regardless of their linguistic background, to participate equally with each other. And it's this kind of inclusion that's going well beyond deafness, and is bringing the world together, regardless of what language people might speak. And in the case of Unilever, they were talking about Dove soap. So for big multinationals who are looking to have a kind of global brand presence, getting the right words in the right language to come out the right way is quite a challenge. And we worked in hand in glove with Unilever to make sure that all of the right words came out the right way in Turkish, Romanian, Bulgarian, etc. And was a very successful event.
You mentioned, it's a way to create that connection. And I think that is so key, especially over the last year and a half, as we've been facing this pandemic, and that feeling of connection is probably more important than ever. On the pandemic, what has that taught you as a leader? Clearly the world is different than it was a year and a half ago. And so what did, this past few months teach you?
Diversification, in a word. Make sure that you've got diverse product lines and diverse income sources, so that you're not in any way beholden to any particular event. So for example, our broadcast business, which a few years ago was 70% of the total, our broadcast business fell by half with COVID. If we did not have the education, enterprise, and online part of the business, which doubled, we would have been in dire straits. Now we're seeing broadcast coming back because the pandemic is easing somewhat around the world. But having different business lines that can hedge, I would say, against particular events certainly makes me sleep a lot easier now than I did a few years ago, where we were far more reliant on a few key customers and a few key sectors. The other piece of diversification is actually geographic. So, not being beholden to one particular economy has been very helpful as well. And we operate now in dozens of countries. And when things are slowing down, because there's a lockdown, for example, in one of those countries, it tends to sort of naturally balance with some of the other countries. And so that sort of hedging and diversification has really been a key lesson. And, we kind of got a bit lucky that we'd done all the hard, heavy lifting of kind of setting up that North American operation from, well, we set up the US business in 2016, the Canadian in 2017. And so we had sort of 4 years under our belt of the hard work of setting everything up before the pandemic hit. And then we were able to actually transition reasonably well into remote working. It would have been a very different story if we were trying to set everything up in March of 2020. And so, there's a bit of luck as well in that strategy.
Well, from what you've described over the growth that you've had over the last little while, I'd say that you've managed to weather this quite well, and I think your leadership has been very successful. So congratulations on that. One last question: when are we going to see you back in Canada?
Oh, when the Australian government lets me. We're not. I mean, it's bizarre. You are not allowed to leave Australia at the moment. It's like the Soviet Union. You have to apply for a permit with a reason as to why you can leave, and then if you do leave, you can't necessarily come back. They're talking about June 2022. I mean, I hope it's sooner. I still have my apartment in Toronto. I'm really looking forward to the opportunity of getting back there. I'll be on the first flight that I can. But unfortunately, that's out of my hands at the moment.
Well, we won't hold that against you. Thank you. We look forward to welcoming you back, of course. But thank you for taking some time to share your journey and your story with us. We really appreciate it. Again, very inspirational, and I think hopefully our listeners and viewers have taken some great takeaways here and will apply it to their businesses, to their leadership. So thank you, Tony, for being here with us. Our next session begins at 12:15, so please make sure you make your way back in the next few minutes for that session. And I just would like to thank EDC, the sponsor of this session. Thank you all, and enjoy the rest of the summit.